She told me I was clingy and she needed space, so I gave her exactly what she wanted. I blocked her notifications, disabled read receipts, and went completely silent. 3 weeks later, she was banging on my door at midnight, screaming about the 200 messages I never answered. I'd been dating Natalie for about 7 months when everything fell apart. We met through a friend's barbecue last spring. She was smart, funny, worked as a marketing director at some tech startup. The first few months were incredible. We had chemistry, we laughed at the same stupid jokes, we could talk for hours about nothing. It felt easy, natural, like I'd finally found someone who just got me. But around month 5, things started shifting. Subtle at first. She'd take longer to respond to my texts. Plans we'd made would get canceled last minute with vague excuses about work or exhaustion. When we did manage to see each other, she seemed distracted, always checking her phone, her mind somewhere else entirely. I tried to be understanding. I know life gets busy. I know work can be overwhelming. But after the 3rd canceled dinner in a month, I started to wonder if it was something more. So I asked her about it. Gently, carefully, trying not to sound accusatory. I told her I'd noticed she seemed distant lately and asked if everything was okay. That's when she flipped it on me. She sighed heavily and said, "God, you're so needy lately. Can't you just give me some space to breathe? Not everything revolves around you." I was stunned. Needy? I'd sent her maybe 2 texts that day. One saying good morning, another asking about dinner plans. That was it. But apparently, that was suffocating. The final conversation happened 3 weeks ago. We were supposed to have dinner on Friday night. She canceled Thursday evening via text. Short message, something came up, can we reschedule? I called her instead of texting back because I wanted to actually talk, not have another conversation through screens. I asked if everything was all right and mentioned that she'd seemed really distant lately, that I was worried about us. The response I got made my blood run cold. She told me, "There I go again, this is exactly what she was talking about." I asked what she meant. She said I was suffocating her, constantly texting, always wanting to know where she was, needing validation every 5 seconds, that it was exhausting being with someone so desperate for attention. I sat there holding the phone, genuinely confused. I'd sent her 2 texts that day. 2. I pointed that out. She said it wasn't about the number, it was about the energy I was bringing, that I was like a puppy that needed constant attention and she couldn't handle it anymore. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said she wanted to text when she felt like it, call when she wanted to talk, not because I needed my daily dose of reassurance. She told me to stop being so desperate. And that's when something in me just clicked. I said all right. She seemed surprised, asked what I meant. I repeated it. All right, no problem. She said good, finally, I'll text you when I feel like it. Then she hung up. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, phone still in my hand, processing what had just happened. 7 months together. I'd rearranged my work schedule for her events, helped her move apartments, met her entire family, driven across the city at midnight when she had a flat tire. And now I was needy for wanting basic communication. Fine. She wanted to text when she felt like it. Let's see how that worked out. I opened her chat and hit mute. No notifications. Then I went into settings and turned off read receipts, specifically for her contact. Then I put my entire phone on Do Not Disturb mode, only allowing calls from family and close friends to come through. If she wanted space, she'd get all the space in the universe. The first week was harder than I expected. I kept catching myself reaching for my phone, about to check if she'd messaged. Had to physically put the phone in another room sometimes just to stop the automatic habit. But I stuck with it. Meanwhile, life went on. I caught up with friends I'd been neglecting. Actually finished that carpentry project in my garage that had been sitting half done for months. Went on a weekend fishing trip with my brother, something I'd been postponing because Natalie always had maybe plans that never actually materialized. My buddy Derek asked about her in the second week. Said he hadn't seen her around lately. I told him we were giving each other some space. He asked if that was code for breaking up. I said it was code for exactly what I said, space. He gave me a knowing look but didn't push further. But here's what I didn't know at the time, and what I'd only discover later when I finally checked my phone properly. Natalie's texting when she felt like it had started almost immediately. Day 1, hey, thinking about you. Day 2, wanna grab coffee this week. Day 3, hello question mark. Day 4, are you seriously ignoring me right now? Day 5, this is really immature. And it escalated from there. But with notifications muted and read receipts turned off, she had absolutely no idea if I was even seeing her messages. For all she knew, I could have been reading every single one and choosing not to respond, or maybe I hadn't looked at my phone in days. The uncertainty must have been eating her alive. By week 2, she'd switched tactics entirely. She called my work number. I'm a contractor, have my own business line. My office manager took a message. I didn't call back. Then she tried reaching out through Instagram. I don't check social media often anyway, so that went nowhere. That's when the mutual friends started getting involved. Derek's wife Melissa called me asking if everything was okay, said Natalie had texted her worried because she hadn't heard from me. I told Melissa exactly what had happened. That Natalie told me to stop being needy and she'd text when she felt like it, so I was just waiting for her to feel like it. Melissa actually laughed and said that was kind of brilliant. I told her it wasn't a game. I was literally just giving Natalie what she asked for. But this is where things got really interesting. Natalie started spinning an entirely different narrative to everyone we knew. She told people I was punishing her with a silent treatment, that I was being manipulative and emotionally abusive, that she was terrified and just wanted to make sure I was safe. She made herself the victim in a story where she'd literally told me to leave her alone. Melissa filled me in on all of this later. Showed me the long messages Natalie had been sending, these dramatic paragraphs about how worried she was, how cruel I was being by ignoring her. The beauty of it all was that I wasn't actually doing anything. I was literally just living my life exactly how she'd asked me to. Not being needy, not seeking validation, not texting unless she initiated first. Which, according to my muted notifications, she was doing constantly and frantically. 3 weeks in, on a Tuesday evening, I was reinstalling cabinets in my kitchen when I heard pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. Like someone was trying to break through. I looked through the peephole and saw Natalie standing there, hair disheveled, mascara smudged, looking absolutely unhinged. She was yelling that she knew I was home because my truck was parked outside. I opened the door, but kept the chain lock on. She immediately demanded to know where I'd been. I told her I'd been right here. She said she'd been texting me for weeks, calling me, even showed up at my work. I just said okay. That made her even angrier. She said, okay, that's all you have to say? I reminded her that she'd said she would text when she felt like it. So, I'd assumed she just hadn't felt like it yet. Her face went from red to purple. She screamed that she'd sent me hundreds of messages. I said, huh? Must be a phone issue. She demanded to see my phone. I said no. She asked why not. I told her because she'd called me needy and suffocating, so I was giving her the space she'd asked for. Wasn't that what she wanted? She stammered that she didn't mean it like that I knew what she meant. I told her I knew exactly what she said. Stop being needy. Don't text unless she texted first. Give her space. That's precisely what I was doing. She accused me of manipulation. I told her no, this was literally what she asked for. Word for word. She tried to push past the door chain, said we needed to talk about this. Asked if we really did though. Told her she'd made it pretty clear that my need for basic communication was exhausting, and I was just trying not to exhaust her anymore. She said I was twisting her words. I told her I was repeating them verbatim. She stood there for a moment, then her entire demeanor changed. Tears started flowing. She said she'd been stressed about work, that she didn't mean what she said, that she missed me. Could we please just talk? I looked at her and said, Natalie, you called me a needy puppy, said I was desperate and suffocating. Those are pretty specific words for someone having a bad day. She said she was just having a bad day. I said for 3 months? That stopped her cold. I continued, told her she wanted to control all the communication in our relationship, decide when we talked, when we texted, when we saw each other. That wasn't a relationship. That was her keeping me on a shelf until she got bored. She insisted that wasn't true. I reminded her that her last text before the blow-up was her canceling our 3rd date that month, but sure, I was the problem for wanting to actually see my girlfriend. She tried another angle. Said her mom had been asking about me, that her mom really liked me. I said that was nice, tell her I said hi. She mentioned her birthday was coming up next week, asked if I even knew that. I said I did. She asked if I was going to acknowledge it, or if that would be too needy of me to assume I was invited. More tears, but I could see the anger simmering underneath them now. She said I was being cruel. I told her I was being exactly what she asked for. Distant, unbothered, not needy. She said she didn't want this. I asked what she did want then. Silence. Then I said it quietly. You wanted me to chase you. Beg for your attention. Prove how much I cared while you decided if I was worth your time. She started to protest, and I told her to go home. She said we weren't done talking. I told her we were though. That she'd ended this 3 weeks ago when she called me pathetic for wanting basic girlfriend interaction. She said she never said pathetic. I said desperate, needy, suffocating, same difference. I started closing the door. She actually stuck her foot in it and said if I closed that door, we were done. I told her we'd been done since she told me to stop being needy. I just finally listened. I moved her foot gently with mine and closed the door, locked it. She pounded on it for another 5 minutes, yelling about how I'd regret this, how I was throwing away something special, how no one would ever care about me the way she did. That last part actually made me laugh out loud. If this was her version of caring, I'd happily take being alone. But what happened next showed me just how entitled she really was. The next day, I finally checked my phone properly. 134 unread messages from her. I started scrolling through them, and the progression was genuinely fascinating. Days 1 through 3 were casual, like nothing had happened. Days 4 through 7 were irritated and demanding. Days 8 through 14 alternated wildly between anger and fake concern. Days 15 through 20 were full panic mode, apologies, begging. Day 21 was nothing but threats. Some highlights included, "This is really immature of you. I'm willing to forgive you if you apologize now. You're proving my point about being needy. This silent treatment is just another form of neediness. My therapist says you're emotionally abusive. She doesn't even have a therapist. If you don't respond by tonight, I'm coming over. I'll call the police and say you're missing. Your stupid ego is ruining everything. I hope you're happy knowing you've traumatized me." But the absolute best one came the morning after she showed up at my door. It said, "You've shown your true colors. A real man would fight for the relationship, not play childish games. I'm blocking you. Don't contact me again." I actually laughed at that. She was blocking me. 20 minutes later, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Natalie. I blocked you, but I have more to say." I blocked the unknown number. An hour after that, I got an email. Subject line, "We need to have an adult conversation." I marked it as spam without reading it. Then her mom called. Patricia had always been sweet to me. I genuinely liked her. She said she was worried about Natalie, that apparently we'd had a fight and Natalie had been crying for days. I told Patricia we didn't have a fight. Her daughter told me I was too needy and to give her space, so I did. Patricia went quiet for a moment, then asked if Natalie had really said that. I told her that among other things, yes. Patricia sighed and said, "Oh honey, I'm so sorry. She's always been like this, her father, and I probably spoiled her too much." I told her it wasn't her fault and that she raised her the best she could. Patricia said I was a good man and not to let Natalie convince me otherwise. I thanked her and told her to take care of herself. The next development came when Natalie showed up at my actual workplace. My foreman called me while I was at a job site and said my girl was there making a scene. I told him she was my ex and not to let her anywhere near the office, to call the cops if necessary. He said, "Really?" I said, "Really?" Apparently she left before the police arrived, but not before telling everyone in my office that I was mentally unstable and going through something serious. My office manager, Donna, who's 62 and takes absolutely no crap from anyone, apparently told her, "Honey, the only unstable person here is the one showing up at a man's workplace after he dumped her." Then came the social media campaign. She posted this long, elaborate thing about narcissistic men who can't handle strong, independent women, how she dodged a bullet with someone who played mind games instead of communicating like an adult. The comment section was interesting though. Her own friends started asking questions. Wait, didn't you say he was too clingy? I thought you wanted space? Didn't you tell him not to text you? She deleted the entire post within hours, but the damage to her narrative was done. My favorite part of all this was when she tried to get our mutual friends directly involved. She went to Derek and Melissa's house crying about how I was emotionally terrorizing her. Melissa told me later that she'd asked Natalie one simple question. Did you or did you not tell him to stop being needy and only text when you felt like it? Natalie couldn't answer. Just kept saying that wasn't the point, that I should have known what she really meant, that I was being deliberately obtuse. Week 4 brought the grand finale. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. A guy's voice asked if this was me. I said speaking. He introduced himself as Tom Harrison and said he was calling about Natalie. I said, the backup plan, okay. He seemed taken aback, said Natalie was really torn up about what happened between us, and he thought I owed her an explanation. I asked who he was exactly. He said he was someone who cared about her. Asked how long he'd been caring about her. Silence. I continued, let me guess, you've been friends for a while. Always there when she complained about her needy boyfriend, told her she deserved better, maybe grabbed coffee a few times when I was supposedly being suffocating. He stammered that it wasn't like that. I said sure it wasn't, and told him she was all his now, enjoy the experience, just remember when she starts calling you needy in about 6 months that he volunteered for this. Then I hung up. But then the legal threat came. Yeah, she actually went there. I received a letter from some supposed lawyer saying I had emotional distress charges pending for deliberate infliction of psychological harm through sustained neglect and abandonment. I took it to my cousin who works as a paralegal. She laughed for 5 solid minutes, then told me it wasn't even on official letterhead, just some template Natalie had found online and filled out herself. I asked if I should worry. My cousin said no, but maybe I should worry about Natalie being completely unhinged. I decided to be proactive. Went to the courthouse and filed for a no-contact order. Had all the documentation of her showing up at my home, my workplace, the harassing messages, the fake legal threat. The judge granted a temporary restraining order immediately. She was served the next day. The voicemail she left from a friend's phone, already violating the order, was absolutely unhinged. She screamed about how I had some nerve getting a restraining order, that she was the victim, that I'd psychologically abused her, that I was going to regret this, that her father was friends with the mayor, and I was done, so done. I forwarded that voicemail to my lawyer. Violation number 1. Documented. She tried one more time, sent her friend Brittany to my house with a letter. Brittany looked genuinely embarrassed when I opened the door. Said she was really sorry, but Natalie had insisted. I told her I couldn't accept anything. There was a restraining order in place. Brittany said she knew, that she'd told Natalie this was stupid, but Natalie wasn't handling things well. I told her that wasn't my problem anymore. Brittany said for what it's worth, all of them knew Natalie had been treating me badly, the constant canceling, the hot and cold behavior. Said I deserved better. I thanked her. She added that Natalie had been like this with every boyfriend, pushes them away then freaks out when they actually leave. I said sounds like she needs therapy, not a relationship. Brittany said she'd been telling her that for years. It's been 3 months now since this whole thing started. The restraining order is permanent. She violated it 3 times in the first month with various attempts to contact me through third parties. Each violation got documented and reported. From what I hear through mutual friends, Tom lasted about 3 weeks before she pulled the same hot and cold routine on him. She's apparently been through 2 more guys since then, lost several friends who got tired of the constant drama. She still posts vague things on social media about toxic exes and surviving emotional abuse, tells anyone who'll listen that I was stalking her while she was the one violating a restraining order. As for me, I'm doing great. Better than great, actually. I started my own contracting business instead of working for someone else, something I'd wanted to do for years, but Natalie always said was too risky and unstable. Been dating someone new for about a month now. Her name's Carmen. She works as an emergency room nurse. You know what she said on our second date? She told me she appreciated how responsive I was with texts, that her ex would go days without responding, and it drove her crazy. I laughed and told her communication wouldn't be a problem. The difference is night and day. Carmen actually wants to see me, makes plans and keeps them, responds to texts like a normal human being, doesn't treat basic relationship interaction like some massive burden. She's doing me a favor by tolerating. I ran into Melissa at the hardware store last week. She said she'd heard I was doing well. I told her I couldn't complain. She mentioned that Natalie was still telling people I emotionally abused her. I said she's entitled to her version of events. Melissa told me Derek had run into Natalie at a bar the previous weekend. She was drunk and crying about me to some new guy. Apparently 3 months later, I'm the one that got away. I told Melissa I didn't get away. Natalie pushed me out, then got mad when I didn't come crawling back. Melissa said that's exactly what Derek told her. I asked how that went. She said Natalie threw a drink at him. We both laughed. Here's what I learned from all of this. When someone tells you that your basic needs are too much, believe them. Don't try to convince them otherwise. Don't minimize yourself to fit into their comfort zone. Just walk away. Natalie wanted a relationship entirely on her terms where she controlled when we talked, when we met, how much attention I was allowed to want. That's not a partnership. That's emotional manipulation disguised as independence. The funniest part of this entire situation is that all I did was give her exactly what she asked for. Complete space, no neediness, no texts unless she initiated. And it absolutely broke her brain, because what she actually wanted was me desperately chasing her while she decided whether I was worth her time. Some people don't want a partner, they want a fan club they can turn on and off at will. Someone who'll sit there waiting, proving their devotion while being treated like an inconvenience. The restraining order is still active. She still occasionally tries to test its boundaries through fake social media accounts or what my lawyer calls flying monkeys, people she sends to do her bidding. Each violation gets documented and reported. My lawyer says she's building quite the legal file for herself. A few more violations and she might be looking at actual criminal charges. But that's not my problem anymore. She wanted space. She got an entire universe of it. And the best revenge isn't some elaborate plan or scheme. Sometimes it's just taking someone at their word and letting them live with the consequences of what they asked for. For anyone out there dealing with similar hot and cold behavior, hear me clearly. You're not needy for wanting basic relationship things. You're not suffocating for wanting to see your partner more than twice a month. And you're definitely not desperate for expecting consistent communication. Those are normal, healthy expectations. Find someone who actually wants to be with you, not someone who treats you like an inconvenience they occasionally pencil in when nothing better is happening. Life's too short to beg someone to treat you like you matter.